Hey everybody, Anthony here, Connection Director, First Impressions team. This is for you people that weren't able to make it to our training that was April 11th. You missed out on some good tacos and you missed out on good conversation with Pastor Ed here. So we're putting together this quick, concise video to inform you guys of a few things that we discussed and hopefully things that just make you better all around. Not only as a First Impressions team member or a congregate of Shelter Cove, but also just personally. We want to improve in every which way possible. So Ed and I talked about a few different things. I opened up by just thinking about Easter. I had everyone close their eyes and picture 3 different people. I just explained, there's someone coming in, hasn't been to church in years. There's someone coming in who's never been to church, but feels like their family's in shambles, so they need to get right somehow. And then there's the family that comes every single weekend and they're wearing a mask and nothing is actually put together. Imagine those people this weekend as you're shaking hands, as you're handing out sermon notes, as you're directing people to bathrooms and stuff. Imagine that every single person you're encountering is on the brink and you're a part of that life change that God's going to do in their life this weekend. And then, Pastor Ed, we brought you up. We asked you some fun questions. We're not going to have fun now because we need to get to the details. So if you want to know what the fun is, you should have been there. But Pastor Ed, when he got here at the beginning of December or end of November, one of those two.
Yeah, either one.
He arrived and he immediately went into survey mode. Just talked to a bunch of people, sat in corners, watched, perceived, made a lot of notes, presented it all to J.O. after 60 days.
60 days.
10,000? 13,000.
13,000 words.
13,000 word report breaking down, what were your 3 categories again?
Well, as a general rule, I use the Clint Eastwood, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
But there is a method called what's right, what's wrong, what's missing, and what's confused. Mm-hmm. And that's a management consultant set of questions. And I did do nothing but do that for 60 days. Mm-hmm. I didn't really officially take over my role and responsibility until February 1st. Mm-hmm. I did get a chance to take a look at pretty much everything that the church does. Obviously, First Impressions is a big deal. Ushers, greeters, coffee people. I mean, all of it goes together to make that what's called the initial handshake. Yeah. Obviously, people handshake nowadays differently because they use the website as their first impression of the church, and we're in the midst of redoing and reframing and rebranding that even now. But when I think of First Impressions, the number one thing I think of is emotional quotient. You've heard of IQ, intelligent quotient. Emotional quotient is a little bit different. It just says, hey, what is the number one thing that can help me be emotionally mature? And the number one thing is self-awareness. It's being just aware of everyone and everything in your surroundings. That's all. Yeah. And as a greeter or an usher or whatever, I was just challenging people Thursday to take it upon themselves to own the ministry, own the building, own the whole thing. Ownership and buy-in is such a big deal. And then all you got to do is watch for people who look confused, and it's in their eyes. And I said, just because you're not sure, just because you're a greeter, whatever, it doesn't really make any difference. Fill the need where it is required. And I don't know, did I mention JT then?
No, because it hadn't happened yet.
Yeah. So Sunday, JT is talking to me in the concourse, and then all of a sudden he says, hey, wait. And he went over to this couple that had a little baby in their arms, and they just were deer in headlights. Yeah. And bottom line, he talked to them. It turns out they'd never been here before, and he literally walked them down to the nursery. That's called self-awareness. That's having your head on a swivel. Mm-hmm. And then we talked a little bit about ushers being very careful of being loud in the doorway or even in the back of the room, because the last couple rows of worship people are interrupted when we're loud in any form. Even if we're asking people where they want to sit, there's a method of just being discreet and careful with that. That includes also the greeters at the door of the auditorium so that they don't block the door. to step out a foot or two, or maybe even to the side of the door, so that people can easily get in and out, because not everybody wants to chat. They just want to get to their seat. If they're blocked by you interacting with your friends, then it really becomes really difficult.
Yeah.
Plus, the greeting can be different.
Yeah.
It's one thing to see somebody and you've been known forever, and you know something about their life, and you grab them, and give them a big hug, and you stand and talk for it sounds crazy, but even 15 seconds is a long time.
Yeah.
When somebody's waiting to get in. And then when you're done with them, you don't give them the same greeting. It makes them feel like second class in some form. So my encouragement to people on Thursday was just greet the people you know really well, but just don't linger, and make sure that you pay attention to who's around you when you do those kind of things. Because if there's people waiting, well, then just let that person go that you know and get on to the next person.
Yeah. It was really great advice and insight. And again, like, he spent weeks, I don't know how many weeks that is in 60 days, but he spent that amount of time just sitting in a corner watching traffic flow, watching people being ignored, watching people walk around the building, and just trying to figure out what was going on. So all of this is meant to, again, better us. And even that idea of ownership, seeing the little thing and just making it better, picking up the piece of trash, putting back the invite card that's supposed to be up in the little kiosk, whatever little thing that is, it helps all of us work so much better, because then it's not something that just a maintenance person's doing. All of us are servants to Christ, so it doesn't matter what our titles are. It doesn't matter how much power that we have. It's just all about being used by God and being humble enough to allow that to be whatever.
Yeah, so along that line, I think it's important that there's a distinction that we make between somebody who just works at a job and somebody who owns the final, the bottom line, if you will.
Yeah.
You can always tell an owner of a restaurant compared to an employee, because they just take so much more care of their tables and their material, and they're watching very closely who comes in the door. It's the same kind of attitude or vibe, if you will. Before my days as a pastor, I was a consultant for efficiency for Visa MasterCard International. Attained a level called an AVP, an Assistant Vice President. And all I did was help people, whole departments, become more efficient at what they did. And all I did was observe and inform. Yeah. And so I've brought that into the church through a consulting group out of Las Vegas that we work. There's 55 executive pastors that go around the country helping churches just be better at what they're trying to do, which in this case is trying to be incredibly friendly and kind and engaging, making a connection, as Henry Cloud puts it, a connection with people when they come in the door. And that's all we're trying to do.
Yeah, and it's all for this goal in John 3:36. When it comes to us intentionally trying to be more welcoming, more inviting, more even proficient with every effort, with every handshake, with every little move, at making it all intentional. And the helicopter, all of it together is meant for this. John 3:36 says, "Whoever believes in the Son has eternal life. Whoever does not obey the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God remains on him." So we're making this opportunity available for every single person to hear the gospel. So we're getting rid of every little distraction, every little bad encounter that can distract that person from that opportunity to receive Christ. It's all meant to play into that.
Yeah, and so we've got a long way to go, I think. I think Anthony knows that. We've got a lot of plans on the board. Mm-hmm. One thing that I would argue for everyone at Shelter Cove, that's staff-wise, I consider volunteer folks staff, is that we need to always strive to in fact improve. Yeah. In other words, when you're a growing church, change is inevitable. Like, for example, we're getting ready just even to do a little guest services change, and you'll see that coming. Later on, we're probably going to do something with Growth Track. Might be some changes there, like where we might offer it more often. We're going to add some adult education classes, so the volunteer center might be used more in a different sort of way. We might put greeters out in the parking lot, believe it or not, so the minute they open their door, they're greeted.
Yeah.
And I want to put hidden music under there. Think Disneyland, where they start the experience the minute you drive onto the lot. And then there's the whole issue of children's ministry, when nobody knows where the heck it is when they walk in the main doors because there's no wayfinding signs.
Yeah.
I want to change all of that, and we are going to try to do that over the next, 4 or 5 months over summer.
Mm-hmm. And it's, again, all meant to just make us better. We've been stuck in what we're used to and just, managing really well, but then Ed's coming in with a lot of experience, a lot of intentionality. It's going to make us all better, all stronger, and allow the gospel to grow even further.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Scalability.
Yeah, well, scalability is a great term, because scalability, the last 6 years I've been executive pastor of what they call a mega church. It's a church that sees 8,000 or 9,000 people, different people every month. Mm-hmm. And when you deal with that kind of volume and you have a staff of 65, 75 folks, you start asking yourselves, how can we do the same things we're doing when we're 15,000? Well, it's the same thing when you're 1,700. How do you do it when you're 3,500? And so the methods have to be scalable to the next level. Otherwise, you get stuck doing the methods the way it used to be done when you were a lot smaller. Yeah. And that's what we're all keeping our eyes open for as far as being a leader team. Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else to share, Ed?
Nope. Following your lead, my friend.
Well, here on out, I'm just going to give you some heads up about stuff for this weekend and a few more things coming up. One, Easter times, Good Friday, 12 and 7 o'clock. Anyone who's available to help with 12 p.m., please respond to this email. 7 o'clock's looking pretty good. Saturday, we have Extravaganza, 12 to 3:30, 4 o'clock. If you signed up for that, you should be getting all of your contact information from Felicia Lopez. If not, feel free to email her, flopez@inthecove.com. Then we have the 4 o'clock and the 6 o'clock with pizza going on, as well as baptisms. And then Sunday morning, 6:30 service, yours truly. Can I say that? Yours truly.
I think that's okay. Yeah.
Yours truly will be
speaking.
It's
going to be feisty.
It will be feisty. He will have coffee. You will have coffee. 6:30 a.m. out on the lawn. And then we have 8:15, 10, 11:45, again with baptisms going on. And then May 4th and 5th, the Kids Zone, right?
I think that's right.
Kids. Yeah. Kids Zone, the 4-tier playground area will be opening that weekend. That's the weekend before Mother's Day and 2 weeks after Easter.
One thing about that, folks, just realize that when that happens, it's not going to be clean and cut because we've never done it before, and the ingress, egress, the foot traffic may be a little convoluted. So keep your eyes open for what you can or cannot do to help that process and direct traffic. Yeah.
That's gonna cause like a lot of interesting things. The sound,
noise.
It's all gonna be like, we're just gonna figure it out together. We never know what it's like to have that in the building. And the last thing, I just closed the iPad, was so as we're growing, a lot of things are changing. A thing that's happened that maybe doesn't directly affect you today is as children's ministry grows, we've had to relocate our print room from where it was at and move it closer to the worship center. That way there's another classroom available for the adult sidekicks. And like Ed was talking about, volunteer center possibly having to move. All of that is simply, again, because the gospel's being preached and people are wanting to call Shelter Cove home. And if we don't start getting creative now, thinking now of how to scale things, we'll get capped out and we won't be able to allow more people to come in. So we've got to get as creative as possible, and that could change itself in a whole lot of ways before us. But we're doing it together, and we got a good guy here on our team.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you, guys. Appreciate all that you do. I will see you this weekend. Load up on your caffeine, pray really hard, and let's have a great time just loving on people and pointing them to Jesus. Thank you.
Bye.